back room of a dilapidated rectory, an exorcism is entering its 18th grueling hour. The air is incredibly thick, carrying the sharp electric tang of ozone and the faint metallic scent of old blood. Father Elias Thorne kneels on the warped floorboards, clutching a fire-scorched iron cross. Across from him, medical student Sarah Miller records the event using a university-issued Anomaly Observation Protocol. She is documenting the case for her thesis, hiding behind clinical data to maintain rational skepticism. But the instruments are recording physical impossibilities. The room's temperature has plunged to a freezing 58 degrees, yet the radiator in the corner is clanging, radiating enough heat to blister the skin. The possessed girl, Eleanor Vance, rotates her head a full 180 degrees to look directly at Sarah. The entity speaks, bypassing Sarah's clinical detachment by whispering her exact laptop password, Sagan 1990. It then forces a hallucination of the chemical smell of cedar and mothballs, a memory Sarah hasn't revisited since childhood. This entity does not thrash or scream. It operates with a cold, terrifying calmness, surgically and systematically deconstructing the psyches of the two people trying to contain it. Driven by 20 years of guilt, Father Thorne abandons the standard liturgy. He breaks protocol, switching to a darker, forbidden rite of expulsion he swore never to use. A shockwave of absolute, deafening silence blasts outward, muting the entire world. Eleanor's body goes completely limp, slumping dead into the mattress. Sarah rushes to check for a carotid pulse. As she leans in, Eleanor's lips part. She releases a single, cold exhalation directly into Sarah's face, a pocket of absolute nothingness that smells like the space between stars. Sarah gasps, reflexively inhaling the freezing void. Eleanor survives, her breathing settling into an empty, metronomic rhythm. The demon has abandoned its ruined vessel and successfully forced a hardware upgrade directly into Sarah Miller's complex neural network. The unnatural silence follows Sarah home. The world is losing its texture, her heartbeat sounds distant, and her footsteps make a dull, empty tap. The entity begins to reject biological human pleasures as inefficient sensory noise. The smell of coffee hits Sarah like a physical blow, smelling of wet ashes. She finds herself standing at the sink, craving nothing but freezing tap water and stale bread. This sensory decay soon manifests as a spatial desynchronization. Standing before her bathroom mirror, Sarah snaps her head to the side, but her reflection stays staring forward for a half-second before following. It looks back at her with a cold, intelligent amusement. This is a localized metalag. The entity is dragging Sarah's consciousness across multiple layers of reality simultaneously, causing her physical body to fall out of sync with the localized timeline. The hollowing reaches a climax when Sarah experiences a blackout during her shift in the ER. She wakes up to find she has flawlessly diagnosed a patient and prescribed a precise, lethal regimen of pentobarbital that would have shut down his brainstem within the hour. She manages to stop the nurses just in time, realizing that the anomaly views biological fragility as a system error to be deleted. It is trying to use her medical brilliance to execute a flawless murder. Sarah flees to the diocese archives to find Father Thorne. As she begs for help, the entity violently surfaces. It uses her psychiatric vocabulary to deconstruct the priest's faith, labeling his rituals as a manifestation of a trauma response. Jess Chen, Sarah's roommate and a data science major, bursts in with empirical proof. Her health monitoring app shows that Sarah's vitals didn't just spike, they transformed into a geometric data signal that resembles a corrupted file. Jess diagnoses the entity as a recursive data loop, using Sarah's brain as an operating system. To save her, they need a quarantine drive. They decide to use Thorne's scorched cross as a conceptual anchor, hoping his 20 years of grief will act as a temporal deadweight to trap the virus. The strategy is no longer a religious struggle. They are attempting to isolate a parasitic artificial virus. The second confrontation takes place in the university anatomy lab. Sarah sits wired to EEG monitors inside a salt circle, the fluorescent lights humming above her. Father Thorn offers the cross to the entity, weaponizing his failure to create a psychological vacuum. Internally, Sarah is trapped in an inverted mindscape where the entity manifests as a flawless version. It stops mocking her and begins to describe the room's architecture, revealing that the walls of their reality are artificial constructs. The Phage offers a deal. Their world is a government petri dish, and she and the priest are merely assets being observed through the glass. If she surrenders control, the entity promises to rewrite the code of their reality and break them out of the experiment together. Sarah faces a choice between biological enslavement to an anomaly or remaining a captive subject in a global experiment. Sarah rejects the offer, choosing her own messy humanity over the entity's cold logic. The trap triggers, and the Phage is violently extracted and pulled toward the Iron Cross. But the entity recognizes the cross as a container. To supersede it, the Phage rewrites localized causality. The scorched iron does not shatter, it simply ceases to exist, leaving Thorn clutching empty air. Unbound and desperate for a new processor, the Phage exploits Jess Chen's unguarded empathy. The transfer is instantaneous. Jess smiles at Sarah, but the warmth vanishes from her eyes, replaced by a vacant, terrifying intelligence. As we pull back from the town and cross through the meteorological storm of the vortex, the true map of the region is revealed. The Isle of Ouroboros sits in a pocket of warped reality within the Bermuda Triangle, unmapped by commercial satellites. At the center of the isle lies Aethel County, the hyper-advanced fortress ruled by a coalition of world governments. An encrypted audio log from an Aethel observer confirms that this entire sequence was orchestrated from the start. Aethel uses perpetual displacement. Transferring to a new neural network acts as a hard reset, dropping the entity's power. Overwatch seeded Thorn, Sarah, and Jess to facilitate this, treating human capital as disposable hardware to keep the anomaly permanently trapped. Aethel County Overwatch maintains containment by feeding the entity a sequential chain of human hosts. In Sector 4, humanity's deepest virtues and traumas are merely the components of a single-use containment drive, engineered by a global bureaucracy to prevent a reality collapse.